Hey guys, and welcome back for another episode of Rate That Full Art Supporter. And today we got a little different supporter at our hands because today we are looking at no other than Jetsis. And why is Jetsis so special, you may ask yourself? Well, for my sake at least, or for what also people see you're going to see very soon, it is a very unique supporter, disruptive, it's draw power, and it received the ban. So this is definitely a very interesting supporter card to look at today. So why is it so interesting? Well, first, let us see what Jetsis actually can do. So, point here, why is it so good? Well, as a supporter, Jetsis allows you to reveal your opponent's hand, so you get to see their hand first of all. You then can shuffle all their item cards back into their deck, and you then draw the number of cards equal to the amount you just shuffled away. There's actually three very good things going on here. First, you get information of your opponent's hand. 2, you remove all the items to give a very disruptive element, especially in Expanded, and also in the time it was legal and standard. And 3, you get draw power. Of course, that is a little unknown factor in the sense you don't know how much draw you get, but the potential of draw here makes for 3 unique features of Jetsis, which all put together makes for an extremely unique card. And let's see what people actually thought about the uniqueness when we get to the rating, shall we? But first, let's see what Jetsis is called around the world. One of my favorite parts here, because as a collector, full art supporter, it's always fun to see what different languages, well, that's with the name, right? So here we have pretty consistent names. I find the German one, Jesus. Did I seriously just say Jesus? Well, it finds it very funny in the way of pronouncing. I'm also here to butcher all pronunciation, so, well, apologize for that. But this indeed is one of the things I find really, really nice about collecting them in different languages, to simply see, well, what is the card actually called around the world? And with that said, let's look at the scores that people give the Jetsis card. So we start out with standard. And here, remember, this is asked respondents to think about, well, how good do you think Jetsis was on a scale from 1 to 5 at the time it was legal and standard? And I must say, to this day, so far in this series, well, we're at episode 6, right? I have never seen such a divided score. We indeed see that, well, it's pretty consistent that it's good score, but it's still very divided. We have the whole spectrum represented, not so many on ones, but we do see a pretty uniform distribution for the rest of the 4 of them. Well, uniform is used a little loosely here, but we see a somewhat even distribution, which is very interesting to see, I think. And this witnesses that you're pretty much either playing with this card or not. You hated it or you loved it, right? You didn't want to be in the receiving end of a Jetsis in the first turn before you even got to play your turn. It results in an average of 3.40, which is very respectable, but maybe not as high as we've seen with other supporters, but there's something to do with, well, it has a high spread, this one. Let's look at Expanded, shall we? And here we see a large majority go up to 5. I have an idea why some people would rate this very low because, well, in Expanded today, it's banned. You can't even play it, therefore it makes for a terrible card. But if you think about it, if you could play it and you could use it, this card is very, very destructive, very toxic. It gives information, it's draw. It's overall a very complete card, in my opinion. But remember, this is not my opinion. This is the opinion of you guys. So it averages out at 4.03, which is a very solid average. And that now brings us to, well, what I think is very interesting about this card here is the uniqueness aspect. And indeed, as I would expect, we see a very high score of uniqueness, averaging out at 4.5. This is one of the highest scores we have seen single on these cards here. So this promises very well for the overall position of Jetsis. But before we get to its overall position, let's look at the artwork. And again, we have a really good representation of scores here in the sense that we have really strong scores, high scores, and people really like the artwork, resolving in an average of 4.27. Very, very strong for Jets. It is also a pretty card to look at. So all in all, a very nice card. Putting all this together, weighing each of them equally 1/4 or 25%, we get a total score of 4.05. Now, think back on the previous episodes. Well, I don't know about you, but 4.05 is pretty solid, but it's not enough to tip M N, wow, off his throne. So we're seeing here now that N is still in first place with a score of 4.24. Second place still belongs to Colress, 4.13. And Jetsis would then take third place with 4.05, leaving Skylar down at 4th place with a 3.40. Well, this is very interesting seeing now Jets is in 3rd place, but let's see how he holds up as we introduce more supporters. But indeed, overall, a very solid performance. N is still on his top throne here. Culver's coming in a close second, I would say, and Jets is following right behind. Now, before we round off today's episode, let's take a look at the bonus facts you guys have sent in. And well, this time it's going to be more like a joke page, I feel, but I'll leave that up to you. Introducing the bonus facts. Besides the fact that we already know he was banned, turn 1 for victory, one of the first Hollow trainers, and that's actually true. He's N's, well, dad, look it up. And of course, should his name have been Spaghettis in Italian, har har. And of course, if you look into it, he actually hates Pokemon, including his own. There's a little deeper theory about his Hydreigon having frustration being only amplified by the hatred of the Pokemon. So this is very, very interesting. Look it up if you want to know more, but these are the bonus facts that you guys send in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, but before we round off, who's going to come up next? And we got no other than Professor Juniper. And this one is going to be very interesting as we go along because it's not the only supporter with this effect. So I always want to see who does better, Professor's Research, Juniper, or Sagamore. We have all these, well, similar supporters doing the same thing. I think Juniper is going to come out just fine, but let that be up to you. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and until next time.